Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting weekly episode of our Cloud on Air Innovator Series. I'm Chloe Condon, a cloud advocate here at Google, and I'll be your host each week as we dive into different technical topics and watch demos and learn some best practices from some of our top experts here at Google. Now, if you joined us last week, welcome back. So excited to have you here. And if you're new here, welcome. We're so excited to have you be a part of this online community. We do these streams every week, so make sure to come back. Now, if you're joining us live, you may notice that we have a live chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to interact in this space with other viewers, ask any questions that you have for our speaker today, or any topics that you'd like discussed in today's session. One of our moderators will try to answer you live in chat, or you may just be lucky enough that we'll answer your question on the air. So make sure you type in your questions there, and the speaker and myself will answer them at the end of this presentation. Now, if you're not joining us live, hello from the past. What's the future like? Are you in a Waymo right now? I have a lot of questions. Make sure that you register for one of our future sessions so you can join us live as the magic happens. To learn more, you can go to cloudonair.withgoogle.com and you can take a look at all of our previous streams and register for any of our upcoming sessions. We have a lot of really great ones coming up. We have a great library of content for you to look through, so feel free to check out our catalog of previous sessions and watch all of the videos from Google experts that you can watch on demand for free. It's all free. And now I'm super excited to introduce our guest for this week, Holt Skinner, who is a developer advocate for Cloud AI. Welcome, Holt.
Hello there. So, very nice to see you, Chloe, and everybody else out there. Well, I can't see you because this is only one way, but maybe in the future we'll be able to at some point.
Yeah, and I know we have people joining us from all over the place. So let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. I'm here in the Bay Area. Holt, I think you're in
I'm
Austin,
in
right?
Austin, Texas, as my shirt suggests here. We have the Texas Capitol and some bats and things in here, and lovely guitar for all the live music we have going on. Yes.
Yeah, we're doing AI from all over the world. I'm super excited for this today because this is, I won't say a new topic, but something I've been really wanting to dive deeper into today. So, Holt, what are we talking about today? What are we learning?
Yes, so we're going to be talking about generative AI, as it seems everything is everywhere nowadays, all generative AI all the time.
Yeah,
Specifically, we're talking about how to quickly build generative AI applications with Vertex AI. And specifically, we're going to be focusing on applications that use data alongside large language models. So, and the way
AI.
that the thing is that, I mean, hopefully we got a lot of time today because typically these kinds of stuff, whenever you want to build them yourself, it takes like hours, days, weeks, maybe months if we're unlucky and, things don't go our way. So, do we have that much time today?
Well, we have 60 minutes, and I see this talk is called Build Generative AI Applications in Minutes with Vertex AI. So I'm hopeful. We have like at least 60 minutes.
I think we'll figure out a way to do this here. So, I have been known to go on little tangents, but we'll see if we can get it done in minutes.
Ooh, I'm excited. Okay, tell me everything about Vertex AI.
Okay, we're going to go all in on Vertex AI, Generative AI, Gemini, Vertex AI Search, Conversation, all of that kind of stuff. So specifically, we're going to be looking on how we use data with large language models. So large language models are, ubiquitous nowadays already. And so they're trained on a large amount of data, and they can actually be pretty effective at answering questions. But the problem with them is that the information can be out of date, or maybe it wasn't trained on something that you need, or it can just make stuff up or hallucinate, as we call in the AI field. And so there are kind of two main ways that people are using to improve the accuracy of information from an LLM. We have fine tuning and RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. So I've come up with a little analogy to describe the difference between these here. So fine tuning is kind of like sending the model off to college. The model already knows some basic things like grammar and patterns of speech and that kind of stuff, but this allows it to become much more specialized in a particular field. For example, we have Google's MedPalm model, which is a fine-tuned version of Palm that's specifically designed for the medical field, and we have Cody, which is fine-tuned for writing code. And this is all especially useful for teaching it new words that it wouldn't know otherwise, like technical jargon and stuff. However, like college in the United States, fine-tuning can be time-consuming and expensive. Plus, you need a lot of data to get good results with it. The
Amen.
alternative, yes, I know. Luckily I was able to go on scholarships, so that's not an issue anymore. But it still traumatizes many people to this day. The other way that we do this is the kind of the slightly easier option, which is retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. Yes, like that kind of
Love
RAG.
a visual.
Yeah. This is kind of closer to maybe having the model cram for an exam. So you shove a bunch of data into the prompt at the very beginning, and just say, hey, answer questions about this. So the great thing about this is that it's much quicker to do that kind of stuff because you don't have to train a whole new model. You just use the existing model. However, the model doesn't remember that stuff later. It only has to do with that particular request that you're doing. So again, like cramming for an exam, you're probably going to forget it next week. The model will forget it too. But if you have a big corpus of data in there, you can set it up so that it'll be able to retrieve that information later. It's kind of like giving it a nice long Google Doc or a Google Drive that it can look at and reference whenever. So those are my kind of crazy analogies for these these ways of using data with LLMs. So we're going to be focusing mostly on RAG today. So for a quick definition of this, let's actually kind of break down what these words are. So retrieval augmented generation, RAG. So first, generation means using generative AI to make something new, like text or images, something like that. Augmented, from Merriam-Webster, means to be made greater, larger, or more complete. And retrieval means the process of getting something back from somewhere. That's the actual technical definition of it. So what this means is that we're going to generate text that has been augmented with data that we've retrieved, right? So basically using RAG will help combat a lot of the problems with large language models, which is their lack of information and their ability to just make things up on the spot. I wish I could do that more often, honestly. Would have been much better I could have done better in school that way, maybe. So,
You're giving me a bit of a flashback here, Holt,
oh no.
because when I tried to build my very first chatbot, this is before AI was cool and hot and
Mhm.
interesting and on everybody's lips. I tried to build my own chatbot for my personal website, and I thought this will be easy. I'll just populate it with common questions maybe people would ask if they went to my website, like, can I see your resume? Or how do I pronounce your name? And as I started writing it, I realized, oh my goodness. I need to have so many. It's like you never know how your users are going to use features on your website or how they're going to click a button. And with chat, there's so many what ifs, unless you just program it for when it doesn't know the answer to say, like, I don't know anything about that. Westworld,
Mhm.
anyone? It doesn't look like anything to me. You really do, like, by using RAG, I imagine it helps fill in a bunch of those blanks for when you're having to really start from zero and build a search tool or a chat bot, for example.
Absolutely. This definitely makes it easier to do that kind of stuff because the large language model kind of abstracts away a lot of those edge cases essentially. It kind of gives, so for example, if you wanted to build a chatbot like that today, you could use something like Dialogflow CX. And, if you had specific directions you wanted your user to go, you can do that and then have maybe a fallback onto a large language model. And you can have that with RAG or with not.
And
It's
now that
actually,
I'm learning about RAG, not to mention the fact, knowing me, I'm lazy and probably wouldn't have updated my website
yeah,
since I made that chatbot 6+ years ago and it would give old answers.
that's That's very possible, yeah.
So
So,
that
and
seems like a really big benefit, just keeping things fresh and up to date and relevant, even.
absolutely. Now, there definitely are well, we'll talk a little bit more about keeping things up to date in a bit, actually. So, because that's a little bit of its own challenge sometimes. But yeah, so the way that these RAG systems actually work is that, well, first of all, without a RAG, what would typically happen is you just send a prompt into a large language model like Gemini or Palm or something like that. And then maybe you'll have in like some history or state if it's a chat based system. And so the model, which happens to be trained on some data from some point, we have no idea when that was usually, it'll just give an answer as best it can. It'll always give you something depending on how you prompt it, but it may or may not be accurate, just depending on, it's just doing the best it can. It's only been educated on so many things. So with a RAG solution, we kind of alter this a little bit. You still put in a prompt, you still give it the context and history if you want. But the difference here is that you also inject in search results as well, which typically this is done from some kind of vector searching, which we'll kind of go into a little more detail about how that works. But what this actually does is that you edit the prompt as well in such a way that the user query is still in there. But beforehand, you also say, like, uh, let's let me see if I can get into talking to large language model mode. So you say like, okay, don't say anything that is not directly given in this information below, and then you kind of inject all the information that is relevant to what the query is talking about. So this is where that vector searching comes in. So you take the user query, you send it over to some kind of vector searching system like matching engine, which is now called Vertex AI Vector Search, and then it does basically a approximate nearest neighbor matching of embeddings and stuff, which we'll talk a little more about that in a bit. And then it finds all the most relevant documents based on what the user is asking about. Then it injects all that into the prompt, adds a little bit of context in there saying like, only answer this question based on what all is in here. And then it gives you, the large language model will output an answer based on the information. And if you set it up correctly, you can also get citations as well to say like, okay, this came from this specific document that you have in there. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So if you want to build out one of these yourself, this takes a lot of work. I've tried to do this myself, and it's challenging. So the first part you have to do is the actual data preparation side of things, which if you've worked in data science or machine learning for a while, you'll know this is one of the biggest time. This is one of the biggest things that takes time whenever you're setting up something like this. So first you have to collect your data somehow. This can be you can crawl it from the web, you can get it from files, databases, other applications and connectors and stuff. You might need to parse it using something like Document AI if it's in PDFs to get all the text out. And then you'll have to chunk this data up sometimes because a lot of these models have limited context windows, which means how many tokens or how many words it can take in at a given time. So you might have to split it up so that the model or whatever can read it. Then we have embeddings, which I'm still learning about this stuff. It seems a little hand wavy to me sometimes, but basically what happens, it's kind of like a hashing function almost for text or for images or whatever. It basically just takes your input, which is plain English or an image or something, and then it converts it into just an array of floating point numbers, right? And this all lives in a big, imaginary space almost, which can be referred to as like the embeddings space almost. And so everything that's in there, you can actually find so everything that's in this embedding space, everything that's been embedded with a particular model, things that are semantically similar to each other will actually be somewhat close in this kind of space. You can kind of think of a giant, like three-dimensional graph almost, or in this case, it's multi-dimensional. I should have had an image for that. That would have been useful, but oh well. Anyways, all of this stuff to say, you have to do this in order to actually do that retrieval side of things. And then you have to store this in some way. Excuse me. Get a little water here. You got to store all this in some way so then you can retrieve it later. So that's all of our preparation side of things. And this alone can take a good amount of time. Not to mention, there's other things that can happen in here, like if you are trying to use audio. Currently, there's not very many models out there that work with audio. You might have to put that into speech to text or something to convert it over to text before you do all of this stuff. Okay, so all of the prep has been done. We've now made an application. So then what actually happens at our runtime whenever a user puts in a query? So they type something out here. You might have to do spell check, might have to reword it in some ways if it's inaccurate in some way. Then it actually does the searching part, which is where it takes an embedding of that search query, then it compares it with all the stuff that's in our vector database. It finds the stuff that's most similar to it. Then it injects all that data into some kind of large language model, which can be Gemini, Palm, or whatever. And you might have to also keep in context in here. You might have to engineer the prompt in certain ways. You might have to do fine tuning if you really want to. And also you have to get those citations out of it as well. And then that response is actually given to the user. And something else you have to keep in mind here when setting all this up is running the serving infrastructure of this. Like you can use things like Cloud Run or Cloud Functions to do this in a serverless manner, but you have to set it up somehow. And you have to be sure to scale it and handle security and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot to have to think of for one simple application, right?
Yeah.
So let's get started building all of this right now. I think we can definitely do that in just a few minutes here, right?
Yes, we did promise in minutes, and we will show you in minutes. There's
Okay.
just so much that's going on under the hood. Like, It's so interesting because when we're chatting with these interfaces or we're using search, it seems like we search it and it's there, but there's so much that's going in on the back end to make sure that it's relevant, that it's, that it's serving you the right answers that you want. And then I love that you have on here serving like cloud hosting. Like,
Mhm.
what if you build, I don't know, a bot to answer questions about when your favorite sandwich shop is open and the sandwiches get really viral and popular? Like, you need to account for security, you need to account for all those things. So it's a lot going on under the hood here.
There is a lot for this. So, and there are things out there like frameworks like LangChain can make all this setup easier because you can connect all these pieces together using a kind of universal language, and you can also. I like to think of LangChain as kind of building Lego blocks around all of these
Mm,
parts. So and they're universal because you can swap out one model for any other, or you can swap out the vector database for another without a whole lot of changes. So it makes that part easy, but you do have to still set all of these things up individually, and you have to configure them in a lot of different ways. So you have a lot of customization options, but it is more difficult to set up.
yeah.
So the way that we're going to be doing this in minutes is with Vertex AI Search. This is basically just a managed retrieval augmented generation platform on Google Cloud. So it allows you to simplify and scale this up in a lot of ways. And this works especially well with high performance or large amounts of, if you need high performance or large amounts of data. So a little bit about what this is. So you have you either have you have connectors and you have data stores, which is kind of where you load in the data that you're going to be searching. And this can be structured data, unstructured data, websites, and you can also bring in your own embeddings if you are so inclined to do that. You can also add in metadata or a schema if you want to do any filtering on it. And in the future, you'll also be able to bring in your own document processing and chunking if you want to. I believe also there's a feature now where it will do the optical character recognition automatically as well using document AI. So it makes that part a little bit easier. And then, so that's kind of basically your preparation part of it is just loading all this data into a data store or connecting it to one of the third-party connectors available. And then on runtime, you basically just have to, set up. You actually literally set up just a widget that you copy and paste some code from the console, and then the user types in a query, and Vertex AI Search kind of handles all the rest of it. It kind of goes in, it does all the retrieving, it does all of the LLM part, does the summary, it does multi-turn, follow-ups, all that kind of stuff. So you don't really have to manage most of that. And there's also some customizations you can do in here as well. So that's a little overview of that, but it's not very interesting just to hear about it. It's more interesting to actually see what's going on.
Ooh, yeah,
So
let's see it in
let's
action.
an example here. So I'm here in the Cloud Console, and I already have one of these set up just because, we are, it's kind of like the TV chef mode here. We have one, this is one that's already been prepared, sitting in the oven ready for us to go. This is actually a search engine that's loaded up with data from the Google Merchandise Store, which is available at googlemerchandisestore.com or something like that.
Oh, yes, and you can get a lovely shirt like the one I'm wearing currently.
Mhm. Yes, amazing plugs
We
there.
didn't plan that.
But yes, so once it's actually created in here, it's pretty simple it's pretty simple and straightforward to set all these up. All you have to do for a website is just literally give it a link of what you want it to look at, and then do a couple other little configuration things. But it takes like less than 5 minutes to set one of these kinds of things up, which is awesome.
Wow.
And so yeah, and so it actually kind of piggybacks on the big Google search index as well. So it can actually set these up really quickly. So there's a few settings you can have in here. You can have different types of searching, like just search, which gives you just a list of results, search with an answer, which is that generative summary that has the citation stuff in it. You can also have follow-ups, which lets you have kind of a conversational experience as well.
Hmm.
You can also kind of control how the results actually look. You have different types of like text fragments or answer. You can do autocomplete. You can turn on safe search, which I have on just because you never know what's going to happen. You can also customize what this summary looks like as well. So let's say I'm going to ask this thing, I like to be eco-friendly. I like to try and get things that are, helpful for the environment in some way. So maybe I can look for, say, whoops, there we go. So what products are eco-friendly? Let's see what we get out of this. I cannot type apparently. Oh, here we go. Nice. So I can see in this answer right here, Some eco-friendly products include wheat straw plastic, which is an alternative plastic and BPA-free, Google recycled natural notebooks, and Google Cloud glass tumbler. I actually haven't heard about this before, so let's see. And actually, it's currently very zoomed in, but if you scroll down on here, you can actually see these little numbers by all of these, so you can see exactly which entry is being used.
Oh, so there's
Yeah,
citations for all the answers.
yes, exactly. So if I actually go over here and check this out, let's see. Here we go. It gave me this natural notebook, which I do not need any more notebooks. I have too much stationery already, so maybe I won't do that. Let's say I'm kind of curious about where is it? I lost my tab. Here we go. Let's say I'm curious maybe about out of all of that, what materials are being used. It mentions this wheat straw plastic, but what else is being used here? So I can actually go in and ask a follow-up question, and it has the context of the previous question as well. So what materials are used? Let's see what it gives me. Here we go. Google uses a variety of sustainable materials and eco-friendly products. These include organic cotton, RPET, RPET, never heard of that one before. Biodegradable, that's all good. Polyester, recycled nylon, recycled rayon, so cool stuff. And it also gives me links here below to sustainability and all that kind of stuff.
And this is right out of the box, right? Like you didn't
Yeah.
have to do any training or, this is just from the website that we
Mhm.
fed it, correct?
Yep, exactly. So
Wow.
this didn't take a whole lot to do. And so if I wanted to say customize these answers, maybe I wanted to, I'm asking about eco-friendly stuff. Maybe let's see what it actually does here. I have not tried this, so I have no idea if this is going to work.
Doing it
Answer,
live.
yes, answer like a 70s hippie.
Ooh, okay. This will be fun.
I'm actually curious if we'll do it. So let's ask a brand new question here. So let me ask something similar to before. So, actually, Chloe, what do you think I should ask about? What's on the merch store I should ask about?
Ooh, how about something about like things for cold weather?
Ooh, okay. What is available for cold weather? Maybe I should say like what clothes are available for clothes
Yes. It's a
are
little
good.
chilly here. It's gonna rain tomorrow in the Bay Area.
Uh, Here we go. A Google puffer jacket with warm insulation is good for cold weather. It's good for laying when the weather dips. Well, I don't know if my little summary gave me that much difference, but you know what? It still gave me some good answers though, and it does show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows in here the puffer jacket and stuff. I
I feel
think this.
like a hippie would say the weather dipped.
Yeah, I can see that here. A Google sweatshirt. Yeah, so this is a Google sweatshirt here. Yeah, nice.
I have that one in purple.
Cool. I'm not really a sweatshirt person. I'm more of a hoodie person, but
Ooh, yes.
that's just how I am. Anyways, so we've played around with that a little bit here, and I'm going to show a couple other things that are you can go out there and try out today if you're interested in this. So without even setting up an account and stuff, I have this little application that's live on the internet right now, which is very dangerous to have. And I'll show it with a link towards the end of the presentation so you can go to it. So this is actually a bunch of little search widgets that I've created for different websites and different data sets. So I have some that are over the Google Cloud website, like you can search for, say, just Vertex AI, and it gives you all sorts of information on that. We have stuff from Wikipedia, so like I could search for, let's see, large language model. It auto-completed for me, which is very nice. So I can actually look for this stuff. It's really cool. Look, it actually even noticed largest in here as well. Reddit is in here too. Here's the one that I was just showing, this Google Merchandise Store one. I also have one here using custom embeddings that goes to Stack Overflow. So I could search for I don't know, how to create an array in Java. So this one required a little more setup, but I have a notebook that shows how to set this up here. That's not quite as useful as it used to be, but maybe the model changed a little bit. But either way, it did give us good results. So we can actually go in here and go directly to the page that's needed. So there we are.
Great.
Yeah, so this is a bunch of just pre-made little widgets and stuff that you can use. And actually, let me take a step back here as well, because I forgot to show this. So back in the console, all you have to do to actually get these little widgets embedded on your website, you just go over here to the integrations tab. And then you have to put in the specific web page that you're the specific site domain that your web page is going to be on here. For example, this is the one that I was just showing actually. And then you just have to copy and paste this code directly in, and then it'll just show up on the page, which is very helpful. So there's very little coding actually required for it. If you notice any basic HTML, you can get this in there pretty quickly. There's also, of course, the API and Python client libraries, and there's a REST endpoint, RPC, and all that kind of stuff if you want to go in there as well. So
Great.
little side note here. So
I
if you
love a
want to,
widget, so you can just put it wherever you want.
it is nice. And then if you do want to make out a custom UI, I actually have another sample on here that uses the Python client library. So you can actually see how it's implemented here. So this is actually that same website here, but let's go over maybe, what do we want to do? Let's do Google Cloud website here. So just Vertex AI. And so with this, I can actually see all of the results over here. This is just a little UI that I built out using a material design CSS framework. But over here, I also have the raw JSON output from the API itself. So you can actually kind of see what it's structured like, and so you can see how to parse it and all of that. You can see like the raw, the actual like REST endpoint that's being used, the full body of the request, the response of it. So if you want to get super technical in that, you can. And this is all available on GitHub. So this is one of the other things I wanted to highlight today was this GitHub repository at Google Cloud Platform Generative AI. This has a lot of notebooks and sample applications that give a lot of examples for how to build generative AI applications on Google Cloud. If you want stuff for search, there's a search folder in here that has a few examples, including that one I just showed. It has a retrieval augmented generation demo that uses LangChain. It has stuff for custom embeddings. And if you want to do conversational stuff, there's some examples on here as well. There's stuff with Gemini. There's speech, vision, all that kind of stuff in there. So this is all completely out there. It's stuff that you can use today. So, and of course, this is all free, as everything on GitHub is. So
Awesome. And I think we're sharing out the links to these repos. So if folks want to check those out afterwards, we'll be sharing them in our email following after and in our show notes.
yeah, exactly. Oh, and one more thing. This is another thing that's going to be shared later. If you want to get started using Vertex AI Search and Conversation, the documentation has a nice little tutorial that I wrote, and there's also this person right here on the actual page of the docs. I have no idea who that is or where they're at. It doesn't look
Who
familiar
could
to me
that
at all.
be?
Like, yeah, not the same. But anyways, so it has a tutorial for how to create a search app using website data for unstructured data, structured data, and something really cool actually. If you click on this Guide Me button, it actually opens up the Cloud Console, and it gives you kind of a step-by-step guide directly in the console. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so it has like I can select my project here. It actually lets me enable these APIs if they're not already enabled. And so, for example, if I click on this, it'll actually show me exactly in the console where to click to access certain things. So not a lot of people know about these, and they're very powerful.
Yeah, I love this because I don't have to switch back and forth from like step-by-step directions. It's just pointing me exactly where I need to click and go. Especially if you're newer to Google Cloud, these are great.
Yeah, these things, and a lot of times you can find them directly on pages if you click on this Learn button. So a few different products have these. So like in this one, it gives links to documentation, and it has, say, this exact same tutorial right here as well. Yeah, a lot of other products have these. They're great. So let's go back to this for a second here. I would just want to give a quick little shout out to this as well. So Vertex AI Conversation is kind of the sister product of Vertex AI Search, which is basically the same kind of thing, but it allows you to make a chatbot experience instead of a search engine if you prefer that. They work basically the same kind of way, but it's just a different kind of experience if you want that. Okay. And then one other way that you can actually use Vertex AI Search in other applications is what's called grounding. So this is it's kind of, it does the end part of retrieval augmented generation. It basically does that, the retrieval part, and then it actually edits the output of, actually, I guess it literally is just retrieval augmented generation, but without all the search results, kind of like what we did in this one. So you can use this for Palm and for Gemini nowadays. And what you can actually do is connect in a Vertex AI Search data store directly to one of those models, and then basically hone the output of that directly to what's in that data store. Right. So the large language model won't like make things up. Essentially, it'll answer only based on what's in that data source that you give it.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So this has been available for Palm for a little while now. It actually was just released for Gemini not that long ago. And so I'm actually going to show you a quick little demo of this as well.
Fun. We're getting so many juicy demos
I
today.
know. So here I am in Vertex AI Studio. So you've probably seen this before at some point. If you haven't, welcome. It's a wonderful place where all your dreams come true. So you can go in here and you can set which model you want. You can set the region, the temperature, all this kind of stuff. It's a great way to kind of go in and experiment with all of this, with all the options that you have. And you can also get the code directly for it from here, which is really useful. So you can go in here and just click on Get Code and then copy and paste it wherever you need to. So I have this set up to ground on that data, one of the data stores I've already created. So you click on this little checkbox here, Enable Grounding, and then currently you have it set, or the grounding source available is Vertex AI Search. You have to copy and paste this data store path from the Vertex AI Search and Conversation page in the console. Excuse me. And then you can go in here and ask it questions, and it'll answer it based on the information in that data store. In this case, it'll actually give you the citations as well. So, and it says right here, grounding sources. So these are the pages that it actually goes to. And this one is, I think, based on the Google Cloud documentation. So I could ask about any other Google Cloud product and it'll give me something about it. So, and then another thing I wanted to point out here is this lovely little notebook that is now disconnected because I had it open for too long. Reconnect. This one is actually available in GitHub as well. It shows how to use grounding with Gemini specifically. So if I show it on GitHub, oops, here we go. This is the actual link for it. Here we go. Generative AI, Gemini, grounding, intro to grounding, Gemini. So this one you can actually go in and see how this works in the code. So I can go ahead and I think the library is already installed, but sure, I'm going to run it anyway. Let's see. Might take a couple seconds to get this in here.
And this is it's a notebook. Okay.
Yeah, it's a collab notebook. Yeah, I kind of skipped over some of this, but most of the notebooks in this repository have links that if you click on them, it'll just go directly to, it'll open it in Colab, it'll open it in Colab Enterprise, Vertex AI Workbench, whatever. So that's very nice. You can see I made a hot fix on this exact notebook right before this presentation. I realized it was wrong. Oopsies. So you have to go in there, and then I'm going to restart the runtime because I installed a new library. Initializing it. There we go. Reconnected. I have my project ID in here. Don't look at it. It's secret. Yeah.
It's an illusion.
Yes. Even if you tried to do that, it wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let you use it. I think. Let's see. I have to authenticate my user account, and I don't think you can see this. Yes, I want to give it access to everything. Here we go. And then I'm going to import the libraries here. And it might take a second for that, but we'll see. But yeah, so what we're doing here is we're importing the Vertex AI Python SDK and the classes that we need for the generative model, as well as just general tools, which you can use for function calling, extensions, and grounding as well. Then we're going to initialize it, initialize the SDK for my project. I'm going to, there we go, create our model for Gemini 1 Pro. So I can first see in here what this response looks like without any grounding in here. So the notebook already has the one from the response it gave yesterday, but who knows, maybe it's different today. Because you never know with generative AI. It can be, things can change at any moment.
Well, that's the thing about working, especially as a developer relations engineer, is because the AI is constantly learning, it's hard to say how it's going to answer. Like sometimes it'll answer one thing and then it'll learn more, it'll gain more context, and it'll
Yeah.
answer in a completely different way. So just know, us DevRel, when we're making these docs, we have to be very broad because,
They
yeah,
actually gave
we
me
can't
more
say
information than did yesterday. Like this.
X will happen and Y will be returned. It's like X will happen and the whole alphabet may be returned.
This also took longer to respond than it usually does. But like, this is kind of weird. It actually made up chalk.
Chalk. Chalk.
fascinating, actually, because this is with no grounding in here. I just asked it, what are the price, available colors, and storage size options of a Pixel tablet? So that's without any grounding in here.
Sure.
There is also a private preview thing where you can actually use Google search results to ground that as well, which you can kind of see what this looks like here. But I know the project I'm in right now isn't allowed listed for this, so I can't use it. But you can see what the response would actually look like on this. So you can see that the answers are very different than what it actually gave, and it also will give a citation as well for that,
Ooh.
just like the other ones.
Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and a confidence score, so you can use that as that's how much the model thinks what it's saying is right. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is right.
Sure.
Um, and so you can also see how this works with Vertex AI search here as well. I just have to give it the project ID, the region of the data store, and the ID of it. This is the Google Cloud documentation. Now, whenever I tested this before, without grounding, Gemini actually gave pretty accurate and good answers with this, which is impressive, actually. Um, so we'll see if it gives some different responses here. Here we go. Yeah, look at that, actually. This is without any grounding. It actually just knew all this stuff about object tables in BigQuery, which, I mean, it's much more than I ever knew. So
Sure. And it's actually putting tables in there. Okay.
it is, yeah. So it's pretty neat. And then if you do it with the grounding, it'll actually give you the citations with it. That's the main difference it'll have with this, because the response is already pretty accurate and good as it is. So this is taking much longer than usual to do things. Maybe my internet's being slow.
It knows it's being watched. It has stage fright for all of the thousands of people joining us live.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so it has some information here. It's kind of different information than before, but it also has in here the citation for it as well. Introduction to object tables. So it takes you right to the
Mm.
spot. Yeah, and then you can also do this with chat if you want. The results are about the same, but this notebook just shows you how to do all that stuff. Okay, so I think that is, here we go. Let me show the slides again here. These are links and QR codes to the resources that we just showed. So you can go in and actually try them out, explore, and just see what you want to do. And these will also be sent out, or this will be put in the description of the video or sent out afterwards, right, as well?
Yes, yeah, we will be sharing those, but feel free to QR code away. And I'm so excited. We got a lot of great questions during
We
this
did?
whole,
Yeah, let's go.
so I'm excited to answer some questions.
So
Um,
we can get
any anything, so when you are choosing between, this is a question from Chloe, Chloe in the chat. What are instances where you wanted to use grounding versus not using grounding? Is it more of a preference thing, or are there certain scenarios where you would imagine using it or not using it?
So by using grounding versus not, do you mean like using just a plain large language model versus one that is grounded, or
Yeah, I mean, like, are you going to, so we got the citations when we
right?
were going through it. So I guess, like, is it sort of a case by case basis on what you're building, I would imagine? Like, sometimes if you're building an internal tool, for example, maybe you'd want to link to HR docs for what you're talking about. But is it sort of, I imagine it's case by case.
It really is case by I mean, the classic tech answer is it depends. It
Right.
always, but in general, you'd want to use grounding whenever accuracy is of the utmost importance, and specifically whenever you want it to access data that, or you want the model to be able to answer based on a specific amount, a specific corpus of data that you have. Um, so, if, for example, like, I mean, the HR doc situation, if you have a specific set of data that you want it to answer on, then you want to do that. Otherwise, it may or may not matter. If you're doing like creative stuff, it may not matter as much. You just kind of want it. You kind of want it to hallucinate a little bit.
Sure.
Come up with wild ideas.
Great. Okay, we've got some questions. I think we're going to get them up on the screen here in a second. Thank you all for your amazing questions. Excited for these. Let's see. Question number one. Let's see if we can get them up on here. If not, I'll just ask them and then we can go through them. Um, any any final thoughts before we get into these questions though, Holt?
Um, I mean, I think that's most of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
actually.
And
So
we really did do it in minutes.
yeah, we did. We spent more time just exploring and other things than actually setting anything up. So yeah.
So, my first question, oh, here's one. What are some ways people use these tools and implement them at their companies and on their web pages and apps. So it sounds like this person's asking, how are people using this in the real world?
Yeah, so there's actually the one that I've seen the most is just building search engines into existing websites, mostly to search over that particular data. So actually, this is not trying to toot our own horn too much, I promise. Let's see if I can present again. I stopped presenting my screen, sorry. Oh, very nice.
Oh, we got the question on the screen.
Very nice. So I'm going to take over though if I can. There we are. So we actually use this on the Google Cloud website itself. This is using Vertex AI Search. So if I
Oh,
try and search, yeah, I know. So if I search for, actually, here we go. We have Gemma stuff here that just came out recently. So let's see what it gives me about Gemma. Oh, I have to agree to get a generative AI answer. Well, that's actually kind of disappointing.
it's
I'll,
learning. It's learning.
It is learning. It says right here, I'm still learning. It's like it's trying its best, actually. Let me actually try a better question here, like what is Gemma, and see if it gives me an answer with this. Wow,
It's so new.
failure. It is so new. This hasn't had time to catch up yet. But let me actually give it something we'll probably know about. So, and this is something too on here. I know people have asked me about this before, but you don't necessarily have to prompt this with natural language. You can just type in some kind of keyword term, and it'll give you results. It just may not give you an actual answer for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let's
And I
see.
imagine as developers, when folks are building this,
Here
like,
we go.
you also have to build, if you're building something that needs natural language, you need to prompt your user to use that.
Right. Yeah. So for example, here it even gives me options here of like what are some use cases for Vertex AI whenever I just typed in Vertex AI. And it still gave me an answer actually, but um, it's not it's just like what is it, so yeah, that's one use case. There's also recently we announced that Reddit was actually planning on replacing their search, the search on their website with Vertex AI search as well. And there's a whole partnership going on there about data sharing, and basically they're going to be using a lot of Vertex AI in the future for their website. So that's pretty exciting.
Nice. I have noticed that the Reddit search has gotten a lot better recently,
Yeah.
so thanks, Google. All right. Ooh, here's a good question. This person says, this is from Kieran, I have a lot of data which is returned by API or say a lot of APIs. Can I build a chatbot that can answer users' questions and invoke a relevant API in the background?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm trying to think on this. So for Vertex AI Search, currently the only way that one can work with like data from an API is if there's a connector for it, which is currently I think three main connectors like Salesforce, Confluence, and Jira. I think. So for that side of things, you'd kind of be limited to either you could build some kind of custom tool that would export that data from an API into like a structured format and then load that into a data store and do that. Or you could try using, let's see, Gemini function calling as well, because that allows you to it. It's kind of a way of doing ground. You can do grounding with it, but it can also do a whole bunch of other stuff. So um, you can basically just connect Gemini into any kind of function that you want to be able to write, like just like Python code or something along those lines. So you can write custom code that can do that, and then the user query will come in, and then you can set up function calling so that whenever it gets specific kinds of requests, it can go and make that API call, get the data, and then send it back to the user.
Ah, ooh, we've got some great questions here. This one is from Rajiv. For Vertex AI search for data store, how do you secure BYO data and BYO metadata? Will it be encrypted?
Yes, I mean this is pretty much everywhere in Google Cloud. Everything's going to be end-to-end encrypted. It's Let's see. There's actually a whole page like in the cloud documentation about all the different types of encryption and security that's being used for this. You can also use like custom managed encryption keys as well, or either you can do it now, or it's going to be supported in the near future if you're concerned about that kind of stuff.
Great. Awesome. This one is from Krishna. Does the data need to be in GCS to ingest, or can it crawl websites and ingest?
So yes, it can crawl websites and ingest if it's publicly accessible. So for example, if it's like if you can search for it on regular Google, then you can use it. Otherwise, it would need to be ingested through cloud storage or BigQuery
That
or
makes
on the
sense.
connectors.
Yeah, so any kind of like internal kind of documentation or something like that would need to
Right.
be set up.
Yeah. Yeah. For now, that's the way it's set up. But I know that's been a hotly requested feature, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm sure. Um, all right, let's see. Ooh, here is one. It says, does search need to be prompted with natural language, or can keywords work instead, or maybe synonyms, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think we looked at that a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's so you don't necessarily have to prompt, you don't have to like write specific prompts for vertex AI search. You can just kind of give it keywords or actually indeed synonyms. I cannot speak apparently. Um, so I know, like for example, I remember actually on the Reddit little search box that I have on my little web app demo thing. So I remember something that I tried a bunch was I could search for like the name of a university or something. Then I could also use an abbreviation for that university, and it still found the right information for it. Like I think I used University of Wisconsin and then like UW or something, which can actually still work for that. That's the same abbreviation used for multiple universities, but it was still to figure out kind of what I was looking for and some of that. Whenever I
Yeah,
gave it
and
context. Mhm.
I imagine depending on if you're using natural language versus just using a keyword, the results that you get back will
Yes.
vary significantly.
They will vary. They will be different. And also, the summary that you get at the top will also be different because that's designed to answer the specific question you have. You can also configure it so that if you don't want it to give an answer whenever it doesn't ask a question, then you can just not do that. Um,
Yeah. And context is key, y'all. Don't do what my dad does when he talks to his Google Home and says, "Who's the guy who did the thing in the film?" You gotta give context. The more context you give, the better answer you're gonna get back.
yes. I mean, that is the
Uh,
great thing about a lot of these RAG solutions is that RAG is the context basically. But again, you
yeah,
have to ask it in such a way that it can actually find the information it needs. So
yeah. You gotta help out Rag a little bit.
I'm actually kind of curious now. I wonder if we could build out a demo that literally is like the parent actor finder or whatever. Like
We should build that. Maybe that's a demo we should make for next, Hole.
that would actually be kind of cool. If we could get it to work, that'd be amazing.
Stay tuned. We're gonna build a parent interpreter app. I love that. I love that idea. Um, okay, let's see. We got time for maybe a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Um, let's do this one. Okay. What are the main differences between a normal or basic search on a website versus using Vertex AI capabilities? Ooh, good
Mhm.
question.
Yeah. So I mean, the main difference is that well, just regular search is going to be, it can be either keyword based or semantic based. So it means it'll either do just kind of like the same for Command or Control F. That's just find it. You're finding it in a document or something like that, or on a web page. That'll just be keyword searching. It'll check for the exact text that you're looking for. Or some of them might use things like regular expressions if you're lucky on it. And then semantic searching would be kind of checking for those synonyms and that kind of stuff as well. Um, so the main difference between like Vertex AI search and some other kind of search engine is that the Vertex AI search also has that generated response as well. So that's kind of the big part of it. It gives the LLM generated response based on that data.
All right, this question is from Dayon. I hope I'm saying that correctly. How do you embed this into, how do I embed this into my own chat application?
Embed it into your own chat application. So if you're trying to build something that's more chat focused, then you'd probably want to use Vertex AI Conversation because that actually uses dialogue flow in the back end and makes like a chat specific type thing for it. However, if you just wanted to, use a large language model and have it in a chat app, you can basically use the Vertex AI Gemini API and then maybe connect that into like a grounded data source. And then you could, if you wanted to build like, or if you already have a chatbot kind of thing set up, you can basically just have that API call to Gemini in there with a prompt and with the grounding configured in there. And then you can send that response back to the user as well. So I hope that kind of made sense. So
No,
if you want to build
totally.
something from scratch, you can use the dialog flow, vertex AI conversation stuff, or if you have an existing one, you can just add that extra API call in there.
Here's a question from Paresh. It says, when should we consider fine-tuning versus RAG?
That's a good question. So fine tuning, I would say, is largely for it's kind of teaching the model new words almost, like giving it new vocabulary and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's very much an oversimplification, but I would say if you're doing it for a highly technical field, like I mean, the fine tuned models that we have available already are like for medicine and for code writing. So for anything along those lines that has a lot of terminology that very likely the model would not have been trained on, then that's when fine tuning be useful. And also, you'd need a good amount of data that is relevant to that. And of course, if you have the time and the staffing to be able to handle that, because it does take a more effort to set up.
Yeah, having a custom solution. I know when I was building that Chloe bot, y'all, thinking about all the things that people would ask me, like, what's your zodiac sign? Like, you really don't know. That's what I love about kind of these features where there's these built-in answers. We actually had someone in the chat mention something interesting that I'll reference now. It says, this is from Jeremy. He says, recalling an old chatbot issue, ask how many giraffes there are. Older iterations of a chatbot sometimes assumed that people would never ask dumb questions. So if a person asked about giraffes, there must be giraffes. And that's so true, right? Like, think about, I think the first bot that I ever used was Smarter Child. I don't know if people remember Smarter Child. It was an AOL instant messenger bot. And at the time, this is before, AI was a twinkle in our eye back in the early 2000s. I thought, oh my gosh, like, how does it know? How does it know? But then you would ask it something really silly, like that, of course, a chatbot would never know, like, what's my mom's name? And it'd be like, I
Mhm.
don't know about that. But it is very cool now that we have these chatbots that are just constantly learning or scraping from different websites and able to update in real time. It's very magical.
Yeah, they made me think of whenever I was in middle school, Cleverbot first became a
Yes.
thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah, very similar to Smarter Child.
Okay. I think all it does is just like it just responds with things that it's already that other people have already typed in before, I think. So it doesn't make up anything new. It's just like it just basically saves every response it gets, or it saves every input that it gets and then just picks something kind of at random or something kind of closely related to it.
Come a long way from
Yeah.
the days of AOL Instant Messenger chatbots. If you're looking for a fun deep dive, y'all, look up the Wikipedia on Smarter Child. Fascinating stuff.
Oh,
Um, that's a rabbit hole I went down during the pandemic. All right. Well, we covered a lot today, and I love that we really did follow through with our promise hold was we did do this in minutes. We have now been live for it looks like 53, 54 minutes.
mhm.
You shared those awesome resources. I don't know if we can
Yes.
put those up on the screen again. They're lovely QR codes.
I can present again.
For folks who are looking to get started or just don't, I know you mentioned that really awesome like learning lab thing where it points out things to do, but what would be your advice for someone completely new to this space?
Completely new to this space. Oh
I
man.
know you have a lot of really awesome videos on the
Yeah,
Google Developer YouTube channel, so I'm going to point people
I
there.
like
You'll see
to do
Holt's face
it.
all over there.
Yes. Oh, there is actually, if talking about the Google Developer YouTube channel, there is a playlist that my teammates and I made specifically to kind of give an introduction to generative AI. And one of our
Yes,
talks
I've
about,
seen this playlist. It's great.
yeah, I don't remember what the link is. I need to actually find that, but I
You know
have
what?
it.
We'll share it. If we don't share it in the email, I will tweet it out because it
Yeah.
it is where I started my learning journey with all of this
Oh,
when I
nice.
first started here. And it's great because it covers everything for complete newbies and dives very deep into different topics and sections. So, great playlist to check out.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, let's see here. I'll put a couple in. I don't know if I can send this in here. So this is one of them. Oh, darn it. Well, let's see. And actually, on that, oh, I think it's actually in the GitHub repository. I think I have a
Ooh,
page that in there. Let's
nice.
see if I can go in there and find it now. So in the GitHub repository, there is, first of all, on the homepage, there is another photo of someone I also don't recognize, and I don't
Who
recognize that
is
place.
that? We
I
don't know who that is. Do they work here? I don't know.
don't know. So if you click on this, actually, this is a video that specifically talks about this repository.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I promise I'm not just trying to self-promote here. If you go into resources, you can actually go in here. Yeah, here we go. This is the playlist, Generative AI for Developers.
Perfect.
You can go in there. You have stuff from Anu, Nikita, this guy, Zach Polong, Erwin, and Luciano. So these are great people. I'll have.
And I know for me, I learn a lot better from a video, hence why I make so many of them.
Mhm.
So if folks, even if you just want to put this on 2x speed, like, and zoom through it, you get a crash course in how to get started with this
Yeah,
stuff.
I have to because otherwise I get bored too easily. So
I know I'm like crocheting something while I'm learning. This was so much fun, Holt. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll be sharing all the links and resources that we covered in today's session. And we gotta have you back.
yeah,
This was great. We covered a lot of ground in
this was fun.
just a couple minutes
We
here.
became grounded in
We we are grounded.
you
Holt,
know.
you're grounded.
No, okay, fine. I'll lock myself in my room then and
All right. Thanks, y'all, for joining us today. And we will see
thank you
you
all.
next week. And we're covering lots of exciting stuff on cloudonair.withgoogle.com. So make sure you register for our upcoming sessions and watch all the previous ones. Why not? We have a lot of fun on
Yeah,
here.
well, great seeing you, Chloe, and
Good to see you too.
thank
Now
you all
we'll,
for coming wherever you are.
yes, thanks for joining us. And now we'll slowly wave and say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you.
At Google Cloud Next, we're announcing an amazing show.
All right, cue the music.
We're building the new way to cloud.
So that just means we get to think even bigger.
And now helping you connect like never before.
Let's start with development.
I'm loving this. Super cool.
AI is going to change the game for all of us.
Live on the demo stage.
I can't tell you how excited I am to continue blowing people's minds.
We're now in the midst of one of the most profound technology shifts in history. There's so much more for all of us to explore together that'll power this next chapter of digital transformation.